بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of God Almighty, the most gracious, the most merciful, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, may the peace of God be upon you. On behalf of Dr. Jamal Sanad Aswaidi, Director General of the ECSSR and Strategic Studies, I would like to welcome you where we meet this evening at the ECSSR, Emirates Center for Strategic Studies and Research, with a lecture entitled The International Rankings of Arab Universities, Current Status and Challenges, led or held by Dr. Saeed Saddiki, Associate Professor of International Law and International Relations at Al Ain University of Science and Technology, where this lecture looks at the criteria adopted in the classification and rankings of Arab universities worldwide, and to look into the failures in this regard. And Dr. Saeed Saddiki got a doctorate in international relations from Morocco, 2002. He works currently as a professor at Al Ain University of Science and Technology in the UAE. Dr. Saddiki published 4 books, including The Country in an Ever-Changing World, The National Country and the New International Challenges, published by the ECSSR. He has published a number of researches in different locations and with contemporary subjects, including new diplomacy and the Moroccan immigration policies and international rankings of Arab universities. He participated in a number of conferences in Morocco and outside, and he got some of the grants, international grants, especially Fulbright, to create or carry out research at Texas University, and another grant for defense in Rome, and the Arab Award for Social Sciences in the year 2015 in the field of published researches in the Arab world, entitled Arab Universities and to Challenge the International Rankings, which was published as a study in Strategic Vision issued by the ECSSR. And now I call on Dr. Saeed Saddiki to relay his lecture.
In the
name of God Almighty, the most gracious, the most merciful. Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Your Excellency Ambassador of Morocco, Dr. Ali, the Ambassador of Morocco in UAE, of course, my dear colleagues, researchers and officials at the ECSSR, my colleagues, the professors and researchers, ladies and gentlemen, my dear students, may the peace of God be upon you. In the beginning, I would like to express my thanks and gratitude to the ECSSR for really hosting this lecture, and it is an honor to thank the Committee of Interacting with Society, the Faculty of Law at Al Ain University, and the alumni for their efforts to really coordinate and organize this lecture. Today's lecture is about the international rankings of Arab universities, current realities and challenges. The rankings of universities worldwide is of vital importance for the public opinion. It's not only an issue of interest to the elite, whether the politicians or otherwise, but it has become of interest to the public opinion. And the results for these rankings are awaited passionately. And it is always discussed that why our universities are not there or are weak in the rankings. And when one of our universities really rank in the high places, we feel a kind of glory, national glory. We shall talk about 5 aspects today. But before that, I would like to mention the development of the international rankings of universities was with the end of the 19th century. It was not working well, where the objective was to know the universities that graduate the best minds and the most important figures. It has developed gradually, but it was always of national aspect. But with the issuance of the first copy of the classification overseen by Shanghai University in the year 2003, these rankings have now an international dimension, and after which more than 40 rankings have emerged. These rankings, called the universities of elite or high-ranking universities, there isn't a specific definition, but through the perspectives of the researchers and the interested and the experts, we can define these universities through their main characteristics, and they have three. First of all, they include a number of talents, whether regarding the alumni or the students, and it has provided funding, a great budget, which allows it to offer a good education, high-quality education, and to carry out good researches and a good administration of a strategic dimension, which allows it to put strategies and take suitable decisions with the administrative and financial independence. There are rankings, of course, a number of rankings today, as I said, but I shall really focus on the most important, which is the Shanghai Times QS and Weibo metrics. The objectives of these rankings differ. The Shanghai ranking, which seems through the indicators that it is adopting, it focuses on the output of research, whereas we find that the rest of the rankings try to mix between studies, research, and education and reputation, similar to the rankings published by Times Higher Education and QS. And the Weibo metrics focuses on the presumptuous presence of universities. I shall start with a kind of general idea of these criteria, and then monitor the position of the Arab universities vis-à-vis these rankings, and try to read a kind of critical reading, and to conclude what I'm reading that might really constitute a roadmap to create an elite university in the Arab world. We start first of all with the Shanghai rankings, which is very important in this field. It has a reputation, credibility, no matter how the other rankings increase, but it is a pioneer, definitely. It is depends on four criteria. It measures the quality of education through the number of graduates getting Nobel Prizes in different specialties and other awards like Fields medals, which are really prizes given to the scientists of mathematics every 4 years, where their age should be less than 40 years. So in reality, the Shanghai ranking is very important. We cannot really measure the quality of education through the graduates getting these awards, especially the Nobel Awards. Second, the presence of alumni, where we are really measuring these rankings through the Nobel Prizes, but only in the scientific majors, physics, medicine, economy, and those having Fields medals in mathematics. It is known that there is no Nobel Prize for mathematics, and therefore This classification depends on Fields medals. And the second criteria or indication is the researchers who are the most quoted. And these specifications are medical and pharmaceutical, whereas we find the economy has one single indicator, which is, and the social studies also has only one indicator. So there is a kind of a lack of equality between these specialties, where we depend on two indicators. The first is the number of publications, university publications in Nature and Science magazines. And the second, the overall researchers in the Sci guide. Every year, the social sciences, of course, is of vital importance to achieve a kind of equality, which is given really as a double value. And then these rankings that we got, according to the four criteria, are being divided by 4. So it is really obvious through this chart the rate of every criteria on its own. As for the Times classification for higher education, a kind of annex of the higher education oversees this ranking at the Times magazine, and it tries to mix between the different missions of the university, including to really give a clear picture for the students and the parents to choose the best universities to get in. Of course, they have other objectives, definitely. Competitive, international competitiveness between universities and so on and so forth, but they are trying to really offer this service for the students, and therefore we witness that it is focusing in measuring the equality of the universities, sometimes according to reputation. When they really compare the environment of education, they divide this criteria to a number of indications, including the reputation of the university, and the scientific research is given 15% and 30% for reputation. So it tries to really track the picture and the image of the universities. Of course, those who are interested in the work environment, and this will really show at the QS ranking. This publishes, in addition to the international list, it really publishes another list really linked to BRICS and other emerging economies. During this year, the ranking of Arab universities has been published according to the criteria of the impact, research impact, and we shall see that at a later stage. But what differentiates when it comes to the criteria in evaluating the universities, international universities, so the criteria differ, but what interests us, not only the criteria which are adopted in the ranking of international universities, because the only university that have been really ranked amongst the best international universities is from Morocco, the University of Qadi Ayad, whereas in the emerging economies and the BRICS countries, the universities, 2 other Emirati universities have been ranked. So the methodology adopted in ranking the countries of BRICS and other emerging economies, we notice that there are 5 criteria. Every criteria, especially education and research, we notice that they include a special really indicator about reputation, the reputation of the university vis-a-vis the academics and businessmen. Why? Because the student does not go to the university only because it is a good university in research, or chooses the university that he hopes through it to get a good job when he graduates. So the Times magazine tries to really compare between the quantitative analysis between the output of the university and its reputation in its environment. And this list depends on 4 to 5 criteria: the education, the environmental environment, which gives a 30% indicator. And the chart is very clear ahead of us, and time is very really restrained to really mention the technicalities of measuring these criteria and the indications. Perhaps during a discussion we might really tackle this if you have any questions in this regard. The second criteria is the research and the quotations, because amongst what these different rankings will offer, perhaps they will reconsider or really work on reconsidering the regular jobs of the university. So the researcher is not the person who publishes a lot, but who publishes in certain magazines. But more than that, even the good researcher is the person who really affects more and has an impact. The number of quotations in his research are bigger, so you might really publish several really publications. So you have a scientific impact more than a researcher that publishes 10 articles. And until now, there is a kind of a classification or ranking according to the international level for the researchers, the most quoted. And amongst these rankings, the webometrics, and perhaps we can really access the formal website of this ranking to see, for instance, in the UAE, who are the most quoted researchers in all fields. Perhaps there are really ranking for 500 researchers. The winner classification perhaps can be a certain thing, but we are talking about now QS classification or ranking done by the British institution Quarterly Simmons, which is ranking 800 or classifying 800 universities according to 6 indicators, and gives a huge value to the reputation, almost 50%, where it gives the academic reputation 40% and the reputation of the employer 10%. It has taken the perspectives of the employers. It is giving 10% for the reputation of the employers, and other indicators which has a relation with the quality of education and the international dimension for the university through the rate of international students at the university and the teachers there. The webometrics ranking really focuses on the virtual presence of the university through the scientific extent of its website, its richness and its presence, scientific presence in the most important really research engines. It has 2 criteria: visibility 50% and efficiency or activity, as said by the speaker, 50%. Time, again, might not allow us in explaining further these indicators. What really concerns the status of the Arab universities, perhaps it does not really reflect the educational richness and what the Islamic nation has offered to the world, where we are finding that the Arab universities at the moment, either they are not ranked in these rankings, or its ranking is does not reflect the civilizational and scientific richness of the Islamic nation. The Shanghai classification or ranking, in the last copy, in the year 2014, months ago it has been published, 5 Arab universities, 4 of which are Saudis. The first Arab university is Cairo University in Egypt. It has been classified in the year 2006, pardon, and in the year 2008 it left the classification or the ranking, and it came back in the year 2011. Of course, through the indicators that we have seen, the crucial element that made the Cairo University being ranked is that a number of its graduates got the Nobel Prize. So this has really give it a great impact in the classification, because a number of its graduates got the Nobel Prize, especially in peace and literature. When we look at the other indicators, we see, for instance, the most quoted researchers got a 0 grade. In return, the universities of Saudi Arabia are 4. We found that they got these grades through really through contracting with international researchers, which are the most quoted researchers, and some of which might not really attend the university. And these are amongst the criticism really given to these universities. We have King Abdulaziz University, King Saud University, King Abdullah for Science and Technique University, and King Fahd for Oil and Iran, also at Cairo University. The first Saudi university is King Saud University, and then in the next consecutive year, King Fahd University, and 2011, King Abdulaziz University and King Abdullah University for Sciences also became part of the rankings 2010. The rest of the Arab universities, according to Times ranking, out of the 400 universities, we find 1 university in Morocco, the University of Judge Ayyad, which ranked 351 out of 400. And this university ranks also privileged rankings in different rankings, especially when it comes to the Times ranking. The Arab universities, according to Times ranking, according to the best universities in the countries of BRICS, out of 100, the Judge Ayash University and 2 Emirati universities, the UAE University and the American University in Sharjah. The UAE University ranking 71 and the American University of Sharjah 84. But this ranking is not the international ranking, but the ranking according to BRICS countries and the emerging economies. As I said previously, the Higher Education Committee of the Times has adopted a certain ranking in February 2015 and published a list of 30 Arab universities according to one indicator, which is the research impact or impact of research. And we noticed definitely that the ranking has changed. We find that the university in Morocco, Judge Ayash, is 6, and the UAE University, which was the 2nd all over the Arab world, now it ranks 11th. We would like to insinuate that we might notice sometimes that some of the universities publish a lot, but the grades are weak. Why? Because the quotes from these researchers are very low. And therefore, here, the measurement did not really depend on the publications, but the citations that really were taken out of these publications. So we find Texas University, INM in Qatar, A&M, and the Lebanese American University, and the King Abdulaziz University, Qatar University, and the American University of Beirut. The first 4 universities. And by the way, the Committee of Times shall rank universities of MENA region during a conference which will be held in February 2016 at the UAE University at Al Ain next year, where this committee will publish a list of the universities of this region, and the Arab universities, of course, will emerge. But until now, it did not disclose what are the criteria adopted out of the negative aspects of these rankings, because they are not giving a clear picture If we change the value of these criteria, the ranking changes and the position of the university differs from one ranking to another. The best 22 Arab universities in QS ranking, which depends mainly on reputation, is given 50%. We find I chose 22. Why? Out of 700 universities. There are, of course, in the last ranking, 10 Emirati universities, 9 Saudi universities, 6 Lebanese and Jordanian. But these universities remain, no matter what they rank in the Arabic list, but the international list, its status or ranking is still weak. And perhaps we can depend only on the ranking of the first 7 universities that were mentioned amongst the best 400 universities all over the world. In ranking 225, King Saud University 249, and also the American University of Beirut, same ranking, King Abdulaziz University, American University of Cairo, UAE University, American University of Cairo as well. As for the ranking of Webometrics, of course, it is really publishing a very long list. I wanted to really brief you about the best 10 Arab universities, and they are as shown on the chart. King Saud University, it is the first university, but in general, the classification of Webometrics, unfortunately, it's not really stable because it is really publishing every 6 months a list, so the rankings of these universities change. I have perhaps a certain critical perspective regarding the status of the Arab universities. There is weak in really funding education, the lack of comprehensive policies to rehabilitate the Arab universities according to international standards, especially that it is not taking into consideration these indicators that we have mentioned. And of course, there is a kind of weakness for the participation and contribution of the private sector in funding research and higher education in the Arab universities, where more than 90% of funding comes from the public sector compared to the Western universities and Japanese. There is no really gist in research and cooperation between Arab researchers. Most Arab universities are of educational aspect. The students really constitute a huge number, and the language of research is a controversy. What is the language that we will really deal with? Education and research, especially the rankings, depend on the publications that are written in the English language. We have a problem that the governmental universities, the funding of higher education is given according to certain criteria that are not really motivate the good advanced universities. As for the ranked universities, especially the 4 universities, Saudi universities, mostly there is a kind of criticism really given to the manner in which they deal with these indicators, where we notice that there are certain contracts with good researchers all over the world, and they might not really come to these universities, and these universities will not benefit from them, and they only register their names on the research that they are publishing, and therefore they are not really benefiting, especially the students. In this regard, and the lack of balance between different majors in these universities. We find that King Abdulaziz University has ranked 10th in mathematics according to Shanghai ranking, despite that it did not open the doctorate program except 2 years ago. Whereas MIT, it ranked 11, Shanghai 24 or 23. So sometimes we ask this question, why? Because these contracts with professors, very good famous professors, has really contributed largely to really lifting these ranks of these universities, and it's not really, it doesn't go to the quality of education and the professors that are in the universities, and we find that we enter into the website of King Saud University, we find that according to the list of the teachers of the university, the fellow universities, 46, and they amongst them there are Nobel laureates. So a great budget is being really distributed to these contracts, and the university, of course, and the students do not benefit from it. As for the critical really reading of these rankings, there are sometimes not so a clear picture of the quality of the universities, especially when I will be talking about Shanghai. There is a kind of really lack of interest, and this we notice in the media, where they are not really differentiating between the international rankings and other rankings. They celebrate some of the rankings, despite that these rankings are not really international. So those who are not interested really find difficulty in understanding the true status of these universities in the framework of the international lists. And these rankings remain really adopted and remain relative, definitely. The lack of equality and balance between natural sciences, medical sciences, and social sciences and economy. And this we shall notice when we shall be talking about a quick, really, criticism of the rankings. Concerning Shanghai, to really depend on these criteria, they depend on the graduates, the Nobel laureates, and this clarification cannot really depend on the indicator of the professors that are Nobel laureates as well in mathematics. There is a kind of lack of balance. And the different knowledgeable fields, for instance, the economy faculty for political science has ranked 14th in economy and social sciences, according to Shanghai, but it wasn't seen according to the best universities in the scientific rankings, which has affected it, despite that it's a good university. There are also all the publications in the English language which are favored here, and the books are not really adopted according to the measurement of the output, scientific output, where they are considered the backbone of some of the specialties such as social sciences and engineering. The Times and QS, according to the criticism there, they depend on reputation through the perspectives and the census. This affects definitely the reputation and credibility and the objectivity of the university, because we cannot really reach the information given, or the source of information similar to Shanghai University. Webometrics really wants the university to really turn from its current status to really reflect the virtual status on the ground. But this perhaps needs time, because there is a kind of development regarding the policies of the different universities, and despite that it is still in its first phases. I shall try to be brief, because time is not helping us and does not allow to really talk further. I've been told before the beginning of the lecture, because I have only 45 minutes, so there's a kind of suggestions that can constitute a roadmap to create an elite universities in the Arabic world. Strategies, national strategies, there are three choices, according to Jamil Salimi, who is an expert, international expert, Moroccan international expert at the World Bank, and a professor, university professor, and he has a number of writings in this field. Three choices, he says: establishing a unified university, to help this university financially and to support it emotionally. We can choose a university or two in every country, and to give it a certain value, financial support. The second choice is to establish really this elite university, and a third, a new really brand according to the King Abdullah University for sciences and technology. But in my opinion, the establishment of certain poles might not benefit, because the establishment of a very big university doesn't mean that it shall rank high. For instance, Cairo University, the students more than 275,000 students, but Caltech, California Institute of Technology, the number of its students only 2,100 something, less than 2,000, and the number of professors 300, and the number of graduates of this institute and the professors that got Nobel laureates more than 23 individuals, including 3 professors who are still working, despite that the institute is small and now it is ranking high. According to the Times ranking for 4 consecutive years, despite that it is a very small university, a very small number of students and professors. So the creation of poles does not mean that we can really break into this list. We should have a strategy, long-term strategy. We are ahead of a very long-term race in this regard, and the international vision should be there when it comes to the professors, the students, the language, scientific cooperation in invention and publication, whether international rankings, and the publication along with the researchers when it comes to the best universities. There should be kind of balance and integration in this strategy when it comes to the international specialties, this balance between the international dimension and the objectives of the university, because these rankings don't take into consideration the social mission of the university, unfortunately, and the main milestone and the main backbone is the university, and as the head of the university, there should be a good administration for these universities, and therefore studies proven that the more the head of the university is successful academically and scientifically, this reflects the good management of the university, definitely. And this is not a good result, but this is a possibility. The more he's more successful academically and scientifically, the more he's better managing the university, and good power, financial independence, and flexibility in taking decisions. Last point regarding a roadmap. There should be really enough resources. Governmental funding is the backbone, and except the American universities and Japanese universities, these universities classified or ranked are governmental. And the Saudi universities cannot really take this status unless with an open budget. So without this generous financial support, they wouldn't have reached these ranks. We cannot really compare between different universities. We should choose good universities and to compare them with other universities via really financial help. Governmental universities are there, and the other endowment universities, non-profitable universities, because even in the United States of America, except California universities, all are very well ranked. And they are private. But this is the American and Japanese model that remains having only these 2 cases due to the resources that these universities are getting from the companies, from the endowment, and so on and so forth. I shall not speak further. Thank you very much on your kind attention and your presence. If you have any question, we shall really tackle them through the discussion.
شكرا للدكتور سعيد الصديقي على هذه المحاضرة القيمة.
Thank you for this valuable lecture, for talking about the international rankings of Arab universities. We open the floor for discussion. Those who want to ask a question, kindly stand, introduce yourselves and the company you work with. And be brief, kindly, so that we give the opportunity for a large number of people to ask a question. Thank you, Doctor, for this valuable lecture. My first question regarding an issue that a number of expats really suffer from when they study at any university, private universities here. For instance, baccalaureate for 4 years, and when they go back to their countries, they suffer from not being acknowledged. I mean, the diplomas are not really acknowledged, and they ask them to study 2 years so that they might equalize these diplomas. So my second question, as for the classification of the Arab universities, the issue of language in some of the Arab universities, for instance, they have a strong methodology, but they depend on the Arabic language. Similar to Damascus University, for instance, it's an old, valuable university, but it depends on the Arabic language, hugely. If it's a strong methodology but depends on the Arabic language, is it being really excluded from ranking? Thank you. Taysir Sulaiman. Suha Sayed, the Office of Scholastic Donations. Thank you, sir, for this lecture. Regarding the ranking, at the UAE University 2 years ago, there was a conference regarding this issue, and this year in Beirut, most important subjects in the issue of ranking, the issue of data. Because the data, it's very hard to get it or to clean the data. We were really surprised when it comes to the universities. Most of the universities, whether in the UAE or in the Arab countries, they don't have any data, consistent data, clear, well-managed data that can be benefited from. I have dealt with higher education when it comes to the data. Even they have tried to get any information. It's very hard to get this information from universities where their information is clear. It's very hard. This is a challenge. In cooperation with MENA, and how can we really overcome this? We notice that the institutional research and effectiveness is there in most of the American universities, which has a relationship in the ranking in the issue of unifying these data. Very few universities that has this department try to enter into the website. Very few universities that have this unit to unify the data and work in accreditation, quality, and performance. Last question, I asked it also for Dr. Robert, who is editor for the U.S. News and the Times, in last meeting, the issue of international universities, New York University, for instance. How can I compare it to other national universities, other really universities? Where is the reputation here? Where is the research? How can I rank different universities. The first question, of course, I don't know the status, definitely, but there are certain contracts between countries when it comes to acknowledging diplomas. Because I don't know really what goes on. What I know is there are really agreements, bilateral agreements between different Arab countries regarding the acknowledgement of the diplomas. But some of the universities, private universities, did not get an acknowledgement from the country that they are in, and therefore we should review definitely the same university. Regarding the language as an obstacle, it's not in the teaching but in the scientific research, because the rankings depend on what being published in the periodicals, and we have a number of databases such as Scopas and another database, Samsung Reuters. These are very famous, and they compete in the information regarding scientific research and the citations. So the scientific research or publications where these magazines that depend on the classification and ranking are only in the fields of English language or language. But this challenge does not exist greatly. I shall give you an example. We have seen the University of Qadi Ayyad. Most of its professors are there, and they exercise their work. Either they are graduates of French universities or they are Moroccans really studying in the French language, but they publish in the English language. So the problem of the English language, despite that I've spoken about this, but we have no time in reality to really explain further. It is no longer a challenge. We have these issues, and that the publication in the scientific field does not need a certain really language to really control this language. So regarding the lack of certain data in the same country, in the UAE there are certain attempts, definitely, and I participated in one of the forums. Perhaps you have heard definitely this project Al-Ankabut, which tries to really gather the data of the universities and to coordinate with them. But I would like to understand the really data that are dependent on in the classification or ranking. The university is not responsible for bringing or really emerging these data. These data are there because they're there in the data. The problem might be that some of the universities do not really offer the rate of its, for instance, Western students to the number of its students, national students, also the teachers there. Of course, if the university had a strategy to really improve its classification, it's offering these data on its own. So these rankings know that the last really part to get the information is from this day, month to this month. So we are not really working well, as you've mentioned, in our universities, and there are certain aspects that we can overcome, especially when it comes to giving the necessary data for the institutions that oversee the academic rankings of the universities. Dr. Khalid bin Hamdan, I work at the Abu Dhabi Police. Thank you for the ECSSR for this lecture and the doctor for your presentation. I have some of the insinuations. We at our Arab universities, we're focusing on the quantity more than quality. You have mentioned this, and if you notice, we have worked in more than one universities. The mechanism of promotion, we are interested in the number of grades, number of research. We focus on the individual work more than the group work, knowing that the latter has more clarity in working. Another really aspect, the support of our countries for higher education. If we measure what the higher education sector in our countries, if we compare them to the Western countries when it comes to really income, it will be very weak. And this really reflects on the mechanism of publication. We are suffering at the moment from a very important point, the brain drain, university brain drain. After 1 year, 2 years of great research from a great professor in our Arab region is taken by Western countries. They give him the opportunity to research, and this really affects positively the Western universities. So we are really expelling our capabilities, and a number of our universities really send the idea behind that. How can the ministries of higher education benefit from these researches that rank our universities so that it can really affect the strategies of education in an accurate manner? My name is Bayan Hani Harab. I work at a company of consultations. I was a university professor for 10 to 12 years in more than one university. Thank you for the center. And another thanks for the doctor for really talking about this subject, which has preoccupied us in the past years. Why? We have no good rankings, but knowing that the criteria are westernized and the perspective of the other vis-à-vis us has certain boundaries. I would like to ask, I want to explain a hypothesis. One of the most important inventions is the human resources are the most important resources in any country, because these human resources work with the natural resources present in environment. Our universities create minds who have the human resources that will be dealing with other natural resources. The highest rate of unemployment in most of the Arabic countries are graduates of universities. Therefore, the university is not really creating minds to invest other natural resources. This is a problem that we should think of. Our sons should work for us, with us, to raise the level of livelihood. To thank you for the great presentation, the methodologies of classifications, but they are ranking us. We don't have a possibility to create our own Arab ranking. If we have a possibility, who is responsible for that? I know that there is not a clear answer, but I wish that the Arab, for instance, universities perhaps might take this responsibility, but I doubt it, because there are certain calls to create a workshop and pay for its price. So who can be responsible for that? For really formulating an Arab criteria to evaluate ourselves in our own language, because now the main criteria, now who can really speak the English language is better, because we go back millions of years. This is the scientific character, which is a human resource that we can give certain dimensions to Arab dimensions, scientific dimensions, so that we can know who and really classify ourselves instead of others classifying us. Thank you very much. Thank you. You have mentioned regarding the difficulty in comparing the uncomparable. I gave an example, definitely. California Institute and Cairo University. You can compare between them. And there are other universities of international dimension. Harvard University, $37 million, and other universities, very few dollars. So these rankings do not take into consideration that it is focusing only on outputs. I'm really linking this to the last question for our really friend regarding can we really create an Arab institution that really ranks the Arab universities. In my own study, by the way, the CSSR published for me a study in strategic vision, and it got the Arab award for social studies in the academic work. And I've mentioned in this book that we should really create an Arab center. It should be governmental to rank the Arab universities. But after really discussing with some of the colleagues, I might really withdraw this suggestion. Why? Because if we rank ourselves 1, 2, and 3, as some of the friends said from the center. We shall rank ourselves. The Shanghai ranking did not put to rank the international universities. Their own intention was to. It was a very honest intention with the Japanese or Chinese universities to know its status compared to other international universities according to the international world map. After that, the world started really benefiting from this classification. Why? So that Chinese universities would put programs to develop itself and really follow the other elite universities. And there are other Chinese universities who put a program for 2 decades on other universities. Other universities put a strategy, 5-year strategies. So the creation of an Arabic center is not is asked for, but we should really put criteria so that we can include in it international really criteria. If we rank ourselves, we cannot really promote the competitiveness of the Arab world, and we might not really offer a great service of the Arab universities, which are really competing with other universities, international universities. This needs further thinking. And I have mentioned the initiative of times of the Arabic universities in this conference, which will be held next year. But if there is a kind of center, it should be a governmental entity, so that there will be a kind of objectivity, and it doesn't really get into the profitable aspect, because times in the US are private, and the ranking of Shanghai is a part of Shanghai University, and its objective is not profitable, definitely. When it comes to the brain drain, South Korea, popular China, now and India, they are really working on bringing back the brain drains. We had what we called brain drain. Now we can really talk about the globalized brain circulation, the speaker says. These Arabic and Islamic brains are really can be brought back. So they've put programs even in China. They established places for them to live that really suits or is very similar to the life that they lived in the West, to encourage them. So the Arabic countries can benefit from this experience. Regarding the governmental support, if we really look into Shanghai ranking, we find the governmental support of higher education has been fruitful. In the American universities, for instance, the rate of the governmental spending on higher education is 3.3%. Therefore, we find that the universities rank first, but the general average in the European Union is 1.3, and therefore we find that the universities, this might be a kind of a criteria that we can really differentiate or understand or explain further this difference between the American universities and European universities. Whereas in the Arabic world in the past few years, it was the spending 0.8% of the higher education on higher education. Is a kind of GDP 0.2%. It does not reach the average, international average, which is 0.73%, which is the international average of spending on higher education. The minimum spending, 2.23 is the international spending. So the Arabic world is spending less than the minimum average of the international average. So but the international average is 2.23. I have no statistics and new numbers, but these are in the past 10 years, and this hasn't really created a great difference. There is a kind of reflection on the level of spending for all universities in all these rankings. Jamil Mohammed, ECAE.
The aim is basically to artificially construct universities which have a high ranking status on the international platform, or is the aim to develop universities which are local, self-sustaining, have high number of indigenous faculty members? If it is the second, then it's going to be a long-term plan. If it's the second, you need to have universities that take in students that do not have knowledge deficit. At the moment, the problem is students are entering universities with not the correct amount of knowledge there. And this is a result of the pedagogy, the ways of teaching which happens in school, which are student-centered, where students sit down, talk, chat, do a bit of research here and there, and not directly taught using the direct instruction approach. What's your opinion? Thank you very much.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أنا الأستاذ الدكتور سعيد الخطيب من جامعة.
My name is Said Al-Khatib from Al Ain University. Thank you, Dr. Said Al-Saddiki. He is our colleague at the university, and thank you for the ECSSR for the valuable lecture. I would like to express or talk about the institutions that are ranking universities, that they are adopting mostly on the input of the university's money, faculty members. I worked at the King Saud University for 4 years and a half or 5 years, and the university had more than 60 faculty from the USA. They are Nobel laureates. I think that the Arab universities, no matter how they show the really low level, I think there is a kind of lack of a very important factor, which is the evaluation that depends on the input and not the output. The most important element in evaluating the university is the level of the graduates. The Arab universities really graduate a number of students who are very good, and they've proven that in the higher education in the US and the UAE are the best students, and there is no really university or research center that all these research centers all over the world have Arab students. So I think that the reality out of these really institutions are private institutions that are profitable, and agree with the directors of the universities, and I would like to prove this because I worked there And tell me what you want and I will give you any evaluation or any ranking, but you should really bridge the gaps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and cover this and you shall be given a great evaluation. Thank you, Dr. Said. But the inputs should be evaluated, not the output. I shall start with Said Al-Khatib. This is kind of a comment. In the past few months, this has turned into a media thing all over the world when one of the researchers disclosed how one of the Arab universities communicated with him to really agree with him, even if he hasn't really gone to this university only for a few days. And perhaps they might really carry out certain discussions and lectures via a video. The problem, and perhaps I have talked about this in the institution, to what extent these people really contribute in developing the university and to what extent they're benefiting from this. So what we need is to bring about the knowledge and not to have this contracting or agreement to get a certain status, and then after which we enter into a war of really preserving this status, and we spend so much money and we forget the main mission of the university, which is education, teaching and research and the service of the society, especially the students, and not only to get this good image. Some of the ranked universities might really move, not to develop the university, but to focus only on these rankings. Regarding the first question, amongst the criticisms, it's not able until now to evaluate the universities through its different positions and different missions, and this is part of its flaws.
Lecture, of course, to all academics. This is a very, very important issue. All academics all the way around the world. I should say my name is Martin Reynolds and I'm Dean of Maritime Programs at the Higher Colleges of Technology. Prior to being here, I benefited by I was working part-time for an institution in Australia, and they increased my percentage over the census period so they could count my publications. I was very grateful. But it's the point you're making. Organizations twist the figures to benefit. But my question is there a direct relationship between the income of the university and the ranking? You alluded to the fact that you thought there was a relationship, and there must be some sort of relationship, but is it possible to say that there is an exact direct relationship? Because if that's the case, well, that's quite an important point, I would suggest.
Thank you.
في الحقيقة من الصعب والسؤال حول العلاقة بين
The question is about the relationship between the input of the university and its ranking. I have mentioned that these indications insinuate that there is a relationship between the budget of the university and its classification. Because we notice that the rich universities, those who have great budgets, are the most ranked when it comes to universities, every university on its own. When it comes to the countries, we notice that the highest spending on higher education and research in the US, we find that the American universities, for instance, are advanced, whereas the southern countries, even the European Union itself, we find that the rate of spending on higher education in all the countries of the European Union is 1.3% out of the GDP. And this reflects definitely on the status of these European universities. I don't have I cannot really define the true and clear relationship between input and classification or ranking, but out of these indicators we can understand that there is in reality a kind of a relationship, and the Saudi universities not really reach these rankings unless because they reach these rankings because they spent so much time. At the end of this lecture, I would like to thank you once again on behalf of Dr. Jamal Sanad Al-Iswaidi, Director General of the ECSSR, Emirates Center for Strategic Studies, and I call you to have a dinner at the cafeteria of the center, and we bid you farewell. May the peace of God be upon you.